Hello everyone! I'm sure we're all well aware by now that there's a brand new generation of games right around the corner, and I thought, what better way to celebrate these upcoming games than by making a video I've wanted to make for a pretty long time. I think we can all agree that one of the most fun elements about a brand new game is team building, so I thought I would list most of my teams that I've had across all of the main series games. Now, the reason I say most instead of all is because I've replayed many of these games several times, and if I were to list every single solitary team that I've ever used, we'd probably be here all day. So I'm just going to give you a brief rundown of my main teams. So without further ado, let's not waste any more time and get right into the video. So I'm going to be going over these in the order that I actually played the games, rather than in regional order. So the very first game that I ever played was Pokemon Pearl version. This game is so special to me, and you're going to see why, because this is the very first team I ever assembled, and you're going to notice right off the bat that it is pretty bad, but it still holds a special place in my heart for being my first team that I ever made. So first things first, of course, we have to go with the starter, and the starter that I picked in Pearl was Chimchar. I'm gonna be honest here, I really didn't like Piplup or Turtwig right off the bat. I'm not sure why. I have no issue with them now, but back when I was a kid, I just really didn't like them, but I loved Chimchar. I adored Chimchar so much, and I knew right off the bat, as soon as I saw it in the very first commercial, that I was going to be picking it. However, once I discovered the evolutions of Chimchar, I really wasn't a big fan of them, unfortunately, and I distinctly know for a fact that I left my Chimchar unevolved for the entirety of my Pearl playthrough, probably also even through the post-game. Now, I do know for a fact that I eventually did evolve him, but I went through the entire game with him as a Chimchar. I actually ended up letting him evolve by mistake when I was first playing the game because I was a noob. I was like 9 or 10 years old. I had no idea how to stop the game evolution, and actually, I distinctly remember that after he evolved, I got to that sign where it tells you how to stop an evolution, so I was so mad about that. So I actually just turned the game off without saving and went back to an earlier point and stopped him from evolving pretty much for the entire rest of the game. So I did eventually, like I said, evolve him later way into the post-game where I decided I didn't hate Monferno and Infernape that much. I actually really like both of them now, so it all worked out. So I just have that very fond memory of going through the entire game with an unevolved Chimchar, so that's really special to me. And it's why even today, if I don't like a starter's evolution, I usually just never box them. I would just not evolve them, because I feel like I should keep them on my team. I feel really sentimental about my starter, but if I don't like the evolution, I typically will just not evolve them. The second team member that I caught, probably the second Pokemon I ever caught, was a Shinx, and I did evolve her all the way into Luxray. I really love Luxray, I think it's really great, and I definitely wanted to have one on my team, so I'm pretty glad that I got it. My third team member was actually a Geodude, and it's so funny because I remember naming her Dude because I didn't have any creative names in mind. All of their names are really basic. You're going to see their names once I finish with this segment, but I didn't realize that she was a girl, and so I just named her Dude, and after I realized it, I just left it the same, even after I realized I could change her name, because I just didn't feel the need to change it. I thought it was kind of cute. So yes, I caught this Geodude because, as you can imagine, with nothing but a Chimchar and a Shinx, battling Rook was very difficult. I really had no idea what to do, and I was just stuck on that gym leader for a very long time, so I needed something that I knew could handle rock types, so I thought what better way than to catch a rock type. So I went into the Urberg Tunnel, I caught that Geodude, I named her Dude, and I taught both her and my Chimchar Rock Smash, and eventually, after probably battling that gym leader about 3,000 times, I finally was able to win. And I didn't know anything about team building at the time, so for the most part, everything that I did was just completely random, just what I thought made sense. So since Dude helped me win that gym battle, I of course just kept her as a main member of my team. After that, I hadn't caught anything in a while, and in the Valley Windworks, I came across the adorable Pachirisu, and I just knew I had to add it to my team. Yes, I did already have an electric type, but again, I was a 10-year-old child. I knew nothing about team building, so I didn't think it was weird to have two pure electric types on my team, so I just caught him, and he really didn't do much on the team. I'm very sorry to say. He really didn't do much. He was kind of just there as a defensive wall, actually. He didn't end up leveling up all that much. I remember being at the league, I swear he was at level like 35 or something. I don't know how that's even possible, but I swear he was like at a super low level when I got to the league. But somehow he was able to survive. He probably wasn't at 35, he probably somehow a bit higher, but I distinctly remember using him to battle against Bertha because he knew Grass Knot, and he could like literally take down her Golem and her Quagsire, all her things with double weakness to grass with Grass Knot. So he had to have been at a reasonable level, but he was just so defensive and tanky because Pachirisu is like the bulky Pika clone, so I distinctly remember using him for those reasons. But unfortunately, again, because I had my Luxray, I really didn't use him that much. But he definitely was one of my favorite team members because Pachirisu was just so cute. My last official real team member was Charap, the Chatot you get in the in-game trade. I remember specifically that I saw the guy in the Eternal City who was asking for a Chatot if you give him a Weasel, and I was like, oh, I just saw Weasels over in that area outside, so I went and caught one, and I traded it, and I got this Chatot, and I loved her so much. This is how Chatot became my favorite flying type. I used it in Pearl, and she was just great. I really liked her, especially since she was traded. She got boosted experience, so she's leveled up really quickly, and I really liked her. I just like Chatot's design, too. I'm really not even a big fan of birds in real life, but I really do like parrots and parakeets. They're kind of cute and pretty. So Charap, she was probably one of my favorite team members to have, and again, she's the reason why I adore Chatot. I didn't have a official 6th team member really in Pearl because I just really didn't know what else I wanted, and by the time I thought about getting a 6th team member, I had so many other just monsters on my team. I didn't have like an HM slave or anything because I didn't have a concept of having one of those. I just would teach HM moves to my team, like my Pachirisu knew Cut, I know. Obviously my Chimchar and my Geodude both knew Rock Smash, my Chatot knew Fly, etc. I did have this Floatzel on my team for a bit that would use Surf and Waterfall, and I tried to make him part of my team, but it really just didn't end up working out. I just didn't really keep him along. But technically, I did kind of have a 6th kind of team member, and that was Palkia. After I caught him, I just kind of threw it on my team, and I was like, oh, well, this can be my 6th team member, because everything else I have is kind of weak and pretty lame, so I just tossed Palkia on my team. And nowadays, I usually don't use the, legendaries on my team, but again, I was a kid, I could not beat the league for the life of me, I was just struggling so much, so I thought, why not just throw Palkia on my team and destroy everything in my path? So this is my very first team, guys. I know it looks quite terrible, but I do have a special fondness for this group because, like I said, this is the very first team I ever created in the first game I ever played, so they do hold some sentimentality into my heart, and I do love them very much. But don't worry, my teams will get kind of better from here on out, not so much because I'm kind of a noob, I kind of just play with what I like, I don't really look for the coolest, most powerful mons out there, but don't worry, you're gonna love my next team for sure, because that is truly a ragtag group of Pokemon right there. A quick note, I will be including the nicknames of all my team members once I finish going over them on the screen. Many of the nicknames are themes based on different things, like, for example, Pokemon Adventures characters, I really like taking their nickname themes and using them for myself, so you're gonna notice that a lot of them follow those same themes, but a lot of the nicknames are also just kind of random. Some of them are based off of people in real life, so you'll see when we get to that. The second game that I ever played was Fire Red. After Pearl, I kind of wanted another game to play. I thought it was really fun, and again, me being 9 or 10-year-old, me, little kid, didn't really know much about the games. I watched the Pokemon anime for years, since I was like 4, but I didn't play the games until Gen 4. So I found out about, the previous gens existing, and so I decided I'll get one of those games, and since I had a Nintendo DS, you had the option to also play Game Boy games in there, so I decided that I would get Fire Red. For no particular reason, I just saw, ooh, Charizard, let me get that. So I just got Fire Red, and I believe my sister got Emerald at that time. I didn't play any of the Hoenn games, I went just to get Fire Red, so that's what my next team was. So I distinctly remember when I first played this game, I started out with Squirtle, and for whatever reason, I decided to try out the Pal Park, like, during the middle of my journey when I was battling against Lieutenant Surge, and I was like, let me try the Pal Park and try to transfer these Mons over. I don't know why I thought to do that as I was playing the game, but I did. But due to my game being corrupted, my Pearl file ended up being corruption after an incident where the cartridge got wet, and because of that, I not only failed at transferring anything over, I lost those Mons completely. They were just completely gone. and I was very upset about that. I had gotten the Squirtle I know to evolve into a Wartortle because, like I said, I had gotten to Lieutenant Surge. And for some reason, I thought it was a good idea to try to transfer my team over to Pearl because I found out you could do that with the PAL Park. And I just wanted to try it, and it didn't work, and I was very upset. So I restarted the game, and I'm not sure why, but I ended up restarting with Charmander. I don't know why I did that, because like I said, I started with Squirtle first, and Squirtle is my favorite of the 3 Kanto starters, but I don't know, maybe I was just thinking since I had Fire Red, I should pick Charmander. So I did that. So technically, for my first ever Kanto team, I didn't even use my favorite starter with Squirtle. Sorry, Squirtle. But don't worry, I did end up using it a bit later. I ended up replaying Fire Red probably like several times, so I know I ended up using Venusaur and Blastoise eventually. But for my first official team, I know I had Charizard. My second capture was, of course, the beloved Pikachu. When I got into the Viridian Forest, I found a Pikachu, and I was like, well, I gotta have Pikachu. He is the main character, so I added him to my team. Well, actually, I think mine was a female. But, yes, I definitely added her to my team as well. Because you're gonna see that I just love Pika clones. I like cute, fat little electric types, so you're gonna probably see them on all my teams. Just telling you right now. My third capture, I believe, was Pidgey. Again, I was just kind of picking the most basic captures out there, so I went and I caught a Pidgey. Now, the last 3 on my team are just hilarious. So, my fourth capture was a Paris that I caught on Mount Moon, and that is solely because I felt that I hadn't captured anything in a while, so I said, the first thing that I see, I'm going to catch and add it to my team, and it was a Paris. Now, Paris, especially in Gen 3, was pretty terrible. Its moves were terrible. Its type in general is pretty bad. It's just weak to so many things, but I said I would catch the first thing I saw, and I didn't really, again, have much knowledge about types and, good stats or anything, so I caught Parasect, and, she wasn't bad. I really just kind of used her to set up status conditions. I think I literally named her Statter because I gave them pretty stupid names back then, and she had a lot of status moves that she was using on me. She used, Stun Spore on me when I was trying to catch her, so I named her Statter, and I just pretty much used her to inflict status. But her movesets were just so terrible for a while. I remember being so happy when I got her Solar Beam for the league, and I was just blasting Solar Beams at Bruno's Onixes. That was probably the most enjoyable time I had with this thing. But it did give me a certain love for Parasect, so I'm pretty happy with this capture. My fifth capture was a Mankey. Again, I really just would go through bouts of time without making any captures and thinking I probably should catch something. And so I remember catching a Mankey, and I remember him being pretty good. He wasn't the best before he evolved, but once he evolved and actually got some good moves like Cross Chop, I remember using him a lot. And my last capture, it was an Ekans. I distinctly remember finding this thing in the wild and saying, oh my god, it's Ekans from the anime, Jessie had an Ekans, let me catch one. And I caught this thing, and again, it was awful because its moves were terrible. All it really had was Poison Sting forever, and the only better move it got was Acid. I couldn't get Sludge Bomb until I beat the game, I'm pretty sure, so that thing was pretty useless, but I am not a quitter. I really just don't like to give up on my team members, so I kept these ragtag losers around. But again, I do love them dearly, and they have a special place in my heart for being one of the most random teams I've probably ever come up with. I don't think you'll ever see a team like this from anyone else. So I'm going to put their nicknames up on screen, just like I did with the other team members. I'm going to show you their nicknames all at the end. You're going to notice that their nicknames are all really, really bad, but don't worry, they're going to get much worse as time goes on. The third game that I ended up playing was Pokemon Platinum, and I was so happy as a kid to be able to play through Sinnoh again, and to be able to do it right this time. So that does mean that I ended up picking Chimchar again. I'm sorry for those who expected to see me picking Piplup or Turtwig this time around, but I thought I should actually play through the game and evolve my starter this time around, since, that's kind of what most people do. So I decided that I would pick Chimchar again and actually let her evolve during the course of the game, which I did, and I found it to be quite fun being able to actually use a Monferno and an Infernape this time around in the game. My second team member was not a change. I did use Luxray again because I just love Luxray so much, and I thought, why not use it again? I enjoyed using it for the second time, so not much change there. But my third team member was a bit different. I mentioned that I did end up using a Floatzel in Pearl, but I really didn't use him that much. He kind of was there for a little bit, then I got rid of him. But I do actually like Weasel and Floatzel, and I wanted to use one for my team in Platinum. So once Platinum rolled around, I made sure to add a Weasel to my team, and I really enjoyed it. Weasel and Floatzel have some of my favorite designs ever, so I was very happy to use them in Platinum. My next capture would have been Garchomp, well, technically Gible, but I was very happy to hear that we will be able to access the Wayward Cave much earlier in Platinum, so of course I had to go and add Garchomp to my team. I really like Garchomp's design. I think it looks super cool and really cute, so I thought for sure that I would use it on my team, and I did. My 5th team member was everyone's favorite, Lucario. I really like Lucario as well, and I thought I should probably add it to my team this time around. So when I got the egg from Riley, I kept it around, and I wasn't happy as a little kid having to level it up and have it reach everyone else's stages at that point, but once I did, probably this thing was one of my most used Pokemon. It was just so strong and so helpful in battle. And yes, you're gonna see again, I really don't care about type repeats because I had 2 fighting types, but it was all good. I think I used my Infernape mainly as a fire type while I used my Lucario more as a fighting type. Not sure why I just ended up doing that. But again, that's typically what I do if I'm repeating types. I'll try to have one be a dual type so one can cover some area that the other can't. But even if they're both single typed, it doesn't really matter to me. I just usually like what I like. And my last team member that I got was Weavile. So I love Weavile. As one of the new evolutions they introduced in Gen 4, Weavile was easily one of my favorites, so I definitely had to have it on my team, especially when I found out that you could actually evolve it before you beat the game. So for sure, when I was able to catch it, I made sure to get the Razor Fang, and I think I ended up evolving it pretty quickly, and I was very happy to use this on my team. Even though Weavile is pretty frail, it's kind of like if it doesn't knock something out immediately, it gets KO'd or taken down to very low health, so it's not the most useful thing in the world, but it is very fast, it hits hard, so I really enjoyed using this on my team. And as usual, I will be putting their nicknames up on screen. Their nicknames were based on a very popular video game series. I'll see if you can guess what it is. The next game that I played was Soul Silver, and this was actually my first time experiencing Johto. I was pretty young when the original games came out, so I wasn't able to play them, but as soon as I heard about Soul Silver, I was very happy to finally be able to journey through Johto. Now, I had a real struggle picking between my starter. I love all 3 Johto starters, but especially Totodile and Chikorita. I love them so much, and despite what you probably would have guessed from this video so far, I really actually like water types. Water is my favorite type, so you'd think I'd lean toward the water starters the most, even though I haven't picked one yet. Aside from that Squirtle, I deleted. But anyway, I was struggling so hard between which one I wanted, and I did actually end up picking Chikorita when I played Soul Silver, and that is because of another team member I decided to get who would cover my water type. And honestly, part of me just struggles so hard picking between Chikorita and Totodile. They're just both so adorable. I love them so much. I remember as a kid though, I adored Chikorita just to the extreme. I loved Chikorita so much. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna pick Chikorita, especially since I hear so many people just talk bad about Chikorita. I mean, it's really not the best, but I loved having this thing on my team. Megadium, Bayleef, they're just so defensively tanky. I use them so much just as a defensive wall. I think they were great on my team. I'm usually not too picky about defensive walls on my team. I know a lot of people like hard hitters, really strong physical and special attackers, but I don't mind having a bulky defensive mon on my team, so I really enjoyed using Megadium, and it's so cute. For my second Pokemon, I actually ended up transferring over a Houndour from either Pearl or Platinum. I can't remember which one, but I transferred over Houndour because for some reason in Johto, you have to wait until you beat the game to normally get this thing. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to trade one over. I think when I got to Goldenrod, I just traded one over because I thought that was early enough for the level I could get it. And I just used this as my fire and dark type because I kind of like Houndoom, even though I don't really like, the dog it's based off of in real life. But I thought it was a pretty good team member for me. And pretty soon after, I went to Goldenrod and got the gift Eevee that you get, and I decided to evolve it into Espeon. You're going to also see through my teams that I really like the evolutions, and I try to use them whenever I can. And since Johto did introduce Espeon and Umbreon, I figured I should use one. And since I already had a dark type with the Houndoom, I decided to use Espeon. And I will now contradict myself with that statement by pretending like I cared about type repeats, which I don't, because my next team member was Xatu, another psychic type, yeah. I used this because I needed something that could fly. Back, before we had Pokeride and we could just fly without needing HMs, I figured I should have a flying type on my team, and I decided to use Xatu because it's one of the flying types introduced in Johto. And I actually really like Xatu, especially since I'm a big fan of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games. Xatu is very near and dear to my heart, so I figured I may as well use one. My next mon was the water type replacement that I had instead of picking Totodile, which was Lantern. I think Lantern is super cute and I love it so much, so of course I thought I should use it on my team when I played through Johto, and I really remember enjoying using it on my team. My last team member was a Tyranitar. You're gonna see that I also like using pseudo-legendaries. I try to have, one fearsome mon on my team. I use a lot of cutesy things, so I thought I should try to have some, kind of cooler Pokemon on my team. And I thought, what better than the pseudo-legendary Tyranitar? I always really liked Tyranitar. I thought it was pretty cool whenever I see it in the anime, so I thought I would have it on my team. I think you were able to catch them in the Safari Zone in Johto, if I remember correctly. I might be totally wrong, but I distinctly remember having to, of course, wait really late to get it. But once I did, I remember really liking it. And as usual, I will be putting their nicknames on the screen. Their nicknames came from a pretty popular movie series and franchise. Maybe you can guess what it is. The next game that I would end up playing would be Pokemon Black. And in that game, finally, I did end up choosing and using a water starter for the entirety of the main game. Yes, I love Oshawott so much. The second I saw it, I was like, oh, well, that's definitely going to be my starter. It is adorable. It is the cutest thing ever. And I do indeed love Dewott and Samurott as well. I think they're both really great, so I was definitely happy to use this on my team. My next team member was a Liepard. Again, I remember the day I saw Purloin in CoroCoro magazine, and I thought it was just the most adorable thing ever. And you're gonna see with most of my teams, I do just love cute, adorable little puffballs. And so, of course, I had to get this little kitten, and I enjoy using Liepard as well. My next team member was a Pansear, specifically the one that you are gifted before you battle the Striaton Gym. I figured I may as well go ahead and use it. Unlike most people, I actually do not hate the elemental monkeys. I know most people think they're either ugly or just boring. I never really had an issue much with them, and I really did like Pansear, and I don't have a problem with Semisear. I know a lot of people think it looks just kind of goofy and weird, but I thought it was fine, and I distinctly remember that I had my Pansear unevolved for the vast majority of my journey, up until the point where it just manually learned Fire Blast. I can't remember why I kept it like that for so long. It might have been just to learn Fire Blast. Maybe there was no TM available. But I know for a fact that I had that Pansear at least up until Bryson. I distinctly remember having that thing beat Bryson as a Pansear. So those are some fun memories. My next team member, I actually did something a bit different. So normally I don't usually have temporary team members, but this time around there were two different electric types that I really wanted to use. One, of course, was Blitzel, which I thought was really cute and interesting, and I wanted to use it. But, you know me, I love my Pika clones. I also really wanted to use Emolga. So what essentially I did was I caught a Blitzel and kept it on my team for quite a while. It actually ended up evolving into Zebstrika. And I just kept it up until the point where I got to, I believe, Route 5 in Unova, where you can actually catch Emolga, and then I just ended up adding that to my team. While there, I also added my fifth team member, which was a Minccino. Again, how could I not take such an adorable little fluff ball? I just had to have it on my team, so I made sure to grab Cinccino and Emolga at the same time, and I definitely enjoyed using them. I really liked Minccino so much that I really didn't even want to evolve it. I really wanted to keep it just a Minccino forever, but Cinccino was pretty cute too, so I ended up evolving it eventually. Thankfully, it evolves with a stone, so I didn't have to, press B to delay the evolution. I could just wait until I was ready to evolve it, and I did. And my last team member was, of course, Hexorus. Yes, I chose to use Axew and Deadline not because of the anime or anything, because I just really liked the way they looked. I thought they were pretty cool, especially when I first saw them. I think Hexorus was actually one of the first Gen 5 Pokemon they revealed, and I thought its design was pretty cool, so I decided that I was going to use it on my team. You can see probably a pattern arising that I like using a lot of these late game dragon types or pseudo legendaries, and that pattern is definitely going to continue as we keep looking at these teams. But this was my very first Unova team, and I thought it came out looking pretty nice. I enjoyed using all of these guys, and I will be putting their nicknames on screen. All of their nicknames are pretty much based off of old classic cartoon characters from different series, usually across the golden age of animation, so you guys can look and see which names you recognize. My second journey through Unova did not take place in Black 2. I actually went with White 2, so you're probably going to notice I really like Reshiram considering I chose Black, so of course I chose White 2. I'm not sure why they did that. I always thought it was funny how they had Reshiram as the mascot of Black and Zekrom for White, then they switched them Black and White Kyurem in the sequels, but regardless. So when I first found out that we were going to be able to have older Pokemon in the game to use normally and not just be limited to the brand new ones, of course I decided that I was going to fill my team with a bunch of old mons that I've never used before. The only exception was my starter, and this time around, I actually did not just use Oshawott again. I instead went with Snivy, because I actually really like Snivy. I like Serperior as well, and again, like I mentioned before, I don't have an issue with using, the more defensive, bulky mons, as opposed to, hard-hitting attackers. So I was really fine with Serperior. I really like the design. It's really nice and regal as well. Plus, I really didn't like Tepig as much, especially with the firefighting type repeating for the third time in a row. Plus, there was another fire type I thought about using. But before we get to that, my second capture was Mareep. I think many people who played Black and White 2 added a Mareep to their team early on because it was one of the first things you could catch at the Flockacy Ranch. So, of course, I jumped on that train and I caught a Mareep as well, especially since I had never used one before. Remember, back in Soul Silver, I used Lantern as my electric type, so I thought I would try out Mareep, since Mareep and Ampharos are, of course, very cute. You guys know I love using my cutie pies, so I decided to go with Mareep this time around. For that fire type that I was talking about, that ended up being Arcanine. I actually used Growlithe and Arcanine back in one of my playthroughs of Fire Red. I think it was actually that one where I finally picked Squirtle, as I should have. But I decided to go with Arcanine this time around, and once again, I think I kept this thing as an unevolved Growlithe for a large part of the journey. I think I didn't evolve it until it learned Outrage, because I remember Outrage being a brand new move that Growlithe was getting, so everyone was pretty much keeping it unevolved until it learned that, so I did the same thing as well. And it get kind of annoying because, again, these things get pretty weak when you don't evolve them, but everything worked out well, and I enjoyed using Arcanine once again. My fifth capture was an Eevee. Like I said before, I like using evolutions when I can, and since I already had the grass type on my team with Serperior, I decided that I was going to evolve it into Glaceon instead of Leafeon, which I was thinking about. But I decided to go with Glaceon since in both of my Sinnoh playthroughs, I didn't use either of the evolutions. I could have used it in Platinum, but I ended up just not doing that for whatever reason. Can't really remember, probably because I just wanted other things. So I decided this time around I'll use a Sinnoh evolution on my Unova team, and I went with Glaceon since I didn't have another grass type. Not that I really care about repeating types, as you have seen, but I enjoy using it. It did take a while for me to find and catch one, especially because I was looking for a female specifically, but I ended up finally catching one, and everything went well with that. My next capture ended up being a Trapinch. I really do like Flygon. I think it's one of my favorite Pokemon introduced in Gen 3, so of course I decided to add that to my team as well, and I really enjoy using that. And my last capture was Absol. You guys are probably going to notice that I went through this trying to get one Pokemon from each of the regions at the time. So I had Arcanine from Kanto, I had Ampharos from Johto, I had both Flygon and Absol from Hoenn, I had Glaceon from Sinnoh, and I had Serperior from Unova. And since I had we had a total of 6 slots, but only 5 regions, of course one was going to repeat since we were only in Gen 5, and I decided to make that 5th choice Absol, just because I always liked Absol. I thought it was pretty cool, and again, like I said earlier, I am a big Mystery Dungeon fan, and Absol is a very prominent Pokemon in the originals Red and Blue Rescue Team, so I decided to add an Absol to my team, and I remember that it wasn't the best on my team. Its stats are it's just okay. I guess once you use Swords Dance, and if you have Super Luck, it can be a good critter with Night Slash and Slash, so it's pretty good in that aspect, but I remember being kind of average. Not the worst thing ever, but overall, I think this entire team was pretty good. And I will be including their nicknames on screen. These guys followed a nickname pattern from one of the characters in Pokemon Adventures, specifically being Crystal, where she had the pattern of adding E to the Pokemon's name. So I decided to use that for this team because I mentioned earlier I really like reading Pokemon Adventures, and I like taking some of their nickname themes and using them on my teams, so that's the one I used for this one. Once Kalos rolled around, I decided to play X version, and my starter that time around was Fennekin. I think you all can tell by now that I love very adorable little Pokemons, so of course I decided to go with Fennekin. Now, Chespin is pretty cute too, and I was kind of debating on picking Chespin. I was pretty much dead set that I wasn't going to pick Froakie because I really didn't like the way it looked. But I definitely was going to choose between Fennekin and Chespin, and I decided to end up choosing Fennekin since, like I said, it was super cute, it was adorable, and I also really liked Delphox. Now, I think we all, when we first saw the Kalos starters final evolutions, we all saw those blurry pictures posted on the internet and on Google that someone who got the game early posted, and we thought they looked kind of awkward, but once the official artwork came out, I started to warm up to them, and I especially loved Delphox. I remember not being the biggest fan of Braixen at first, but I just loved Delphox so much, and I did grow to like Braixen, but Delphox just looked so cool to me. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think it looks just quite majestic, and I really like the concept of it being a magician with a magic wand, and the twig that it used to eat is now the weapon that it uses. So another reason why I didn't end up going with Chespin is because of another Pokemon I added to my team. But before we get to that, I'm going to tell you that my second team member was actually a bit interesting this time around. Usually I try to make my teams focused on the new Pokemon introduced in that region. Obviously White 2 was an exception because I had a theme going on there. But this time around, I decided to use Psyduck on my team, and eventually Golduck. And the reason for that is pretty much a funny story, because I don't know why I thought we would just never get another Kanto game ever again after Fire Red, which obviously didn't end up being the case, but I was thinking to myself that I just would not have the opportunity to use a Psyduck. Yeah, I know it sounds pretty ridiculous, but I was a kid then, don't blame me too much. But overall, I decided that if I could use a Psyduck whenever the next games came out, that I would, and lo and behold, the very first X and Y trailer, I'm pretty sure, showed off Psyduck, so I said to myself, pretty much dead set then, that I would have Psyduck on my team, which I did, which worked out pretty fine actually, since I wasn't really the biggest fan of most of the water types introduced in Gen 6. I think my favorite water type is actually Frogadier, which is ironic because I don't care too much for Froakie or Greninja, but I actually like Frogadier a lot. But in the end, I just decided to go with Psyduck and Golduck. As for that grass type that I ended up using, it was actually Gogoat. I think a lot of us love Gogoat, especially since it's so cool, the fact that you can ride on them in Lumiose City, and we can ride on Skiddo at some places, so of course I decided to use this. Of course you can't ride on your own, but it's still a pretty cool and interesting design, so I decided to use it on my team. My next team member ended up being Amaura and Aurorus. Now, when I first saw the fossils, I said to myself, I have to have Amaura. Amaura is just the cutest thing ever. Anything that's adorable, I just have to have him on my team. And Aurorus just looks so beautiful and majestic. I'm pretty sure to this day, these are just still my favorite fossils ever because I just love the way they look so much. Battle-wise, they're absolute garbage. They are terrible in battle just so much. They're not only slow, but their defenses are just terrible. Their type is terrible. Everything about them just sucks. I remember struggling so much with this thing. I don't think I ever used it unless it had a type advantage because it was just so bad. But it's pretty though, and that's really all that matters for me. Just look at it, guys. It's just so pretty. My next team member was Dedenne. You guys probably have seen by now that I love me my Pika clones, and what other reason would I have to use this thing other than it being just a small, adorable little puffball? So of course I added it to my team. Something that you might not expect, however, was me adding Noivern to my team. Now, when I saw this thing for the first time, I distinctly remember thinking it was ugly. I said, wow, the thing's just pretty hideous. I definitely don't want that on my team. But I guess I got over it because I know I ended up using this on my team, and it took forever for me to find one in the cave. I think you have to go to a certain dirt spot and wait for it to fall down and attack you. But either way, I guess I just got over me not liking it because I used it on my team. And overall, I think I really like this team. I liked also the color diversity in it. It just looks so beautiful color-wise, and I really like me some nice aesthetically pleasing teams. I'm going to put their nicknames up on screen now, and this nickname theme was actually based off of Ruby from Pokemon Adventures, and his theme was taking a syllable from the Pokemon's name and repeating it twice. And for me, I ended up basing it on which stage had sounds that I liked the best. Like with Fennekin, I named my Delphox Kiki in the Fennekin stage because Ki from Fennekin, and I just thought that sounded better than anything from the other evolutionary stages, as opposed to something like, say, my Golduck in the Psyduck stage. I already named it Go-Go because I just thought that would fit as a nicer name, and there wasn't anything that really worked with Psyduck. And that's also why I didn't name the Go-Goat Go-Go. You probably would have expected that, but I ended up just naming it Toto from the T and the O in Gogoat, because again, I already used Go-Go for the Psyduck, and I just thought it fit better. So those are those names, and this is actually one of my favorite teams because I just think everything ended up working out really nice and they all really look cute together. Gen 6 also gave us some long-awaited Gen 3 remakes. I think we all remember the Hoenn confirmed days, and I was very happy to finally get to play Gen 3 for the first time, if you don't count me borrowing my sister's Emerald cartridge to play teams temporarily, or RAM hacks. Anyway, so I loved all 3 of the Gen 3 starters. I think they have one of my favorite just starters of all times. I think they all look really great, but I ended up going with Treecko because Treecko was always one of my favorites. I love Treecko, Grovyle, and Sceptile. I think all of them are really great, so I chose to use them on my team. And my second team member was Mightyena. I think Mightyena, Poochyena are one of the main early captures people get in Hoenn, so I decided to use it on my team. I think most people usually get them and then replace them as time goes on, but I decided to keep one around because I always liked Poochyena and Mightyena. I thought they were really cute. And yeah, so I just decided to add them to my team for that reason. Because as you guys can probably tell, I just use things because they're cute. That's pretty much the only reason. But you guys are probably going to be shocked to see my next choice. You guys are probably expecting to see Plusle or mine in here, but no, I did not use either one of those this time around. I actually ended up using Manectric for the sole reason that they gave it a Mega Evolution. If Manectric did not have a Mega Evolution, you already know that you would have seen Plusle or mine in here. Probably Plusle because I would have liked to have the red Plusle with red Omega Ruby, and I just like Plusle more. I've always liked warm colors, my reds and my pinks as opposed to blues, so I probably would have had Plusle here, but I guess this was kind of good since I didn't have to pick between them, and I could just use Manectric. My next team member was Mawile, another thing that I got because 1, it is cute, and 2, they gave it quite an adorable Mega Evolution this time around, so I really enjoy using it. I also liked that they ended up giving it the Fairy type in Gen 6, so that was just another reason for me to want it on my team, and it ended up being really great. Now, the story behind my 5th team member is actually kind of funny. So, my favorite Pokemon ever is Salamence, and I said to myself, I've got to use Salamence when Gen 3 remakes roll around. And obviously, we already know that it's quite a long time wait to get a Bagon in the Hoenn games, and I really did not want to wait that long, so I ended up just breeding one in X or Y, one of those games, one of my Gen 6 already existing games. I bred a Bagon and just sent over an egg to myself. But, I wanted to do something, I wanted to keep some connectivity to everything, as opposed to just sending over something random. So, what I ended up doing was, I sent over my Sceptile also to X or Y, whichever game it was, and I used that to breed with a female Bagon, because Sceptile is actually in the Dragon Egg group that Bagon is also in. So, the Bagon that I ended up using, she is the daughter of my Sceptile. I thought that was always pretty interesting because it's just so funny that my 2 team members are related. They're father and daughter. I thought that was kind of cute that my Sceptile had his little daughter just on the team with him. You guys might think that's pretty weird, but it's okay, guys. Trust me. But yeah, Salamence is my all-time favorite Pokemon, and I just knew I had to use it. And I thought, why not give it to myself early by breeding an egg? I didn't want to, cheat and send some high-level thing over, so I did send an egg over. I bred it and I raised it up from the beginning, so don't worry about that, guys. But yes, I just had to use Salamence, and I just thought this was a funny way of doing it. My last team member ended up being a Walrein. I believe I caught it as a Celio instead of a Spheal, and I just evolved it pretty quickly into Walrein. I always really liked Walrein, and like I said, I do like my water and my ice types, and it's Hoenn. You gotta use a water type in Hoenn, too much water, all that stuff. And I decided to make mine Walrein. So this was my team. I'm gonna put their nicknames on screen. Being that this was Hoenn, I decided to make my nickname theme this time around based off of Sapphire from Pokemon Adventures, since I had just done Ruby, and I think Sapphire's fits well. Sapphire's theme was essentially to take the Pokemon's name, or some variation of it, and put O at the end. I did that same thing for my male Pokemon, but for the females I used A, since that's typically, how it is. A will be names for females and O is for males, so I just did her thing where I did the O for my males, and then I did A for the females. And also, as you can imagine, any Pokemon on this team that could Mega Evolve did. So that would have been Sceptile, Manectric, Mawile, and Salamence. Sun Salutations! I ended up choosing to play Sun when Gen 7 was announced. So my starter this time around was actually interesting. My favorite of the 3 starters was actually Popplio, but I ended up going with Litten this time around for the first time I played. And the reason for that is because I really loved Torracat. I was not the biggest fan of, and I'm still not the biggest fan of Popplio's evolutions, and I don't really too much like Incineroar all that much, but I do love Torracat. I think it's super cute, Litten is cute, and by now you guys know that anything that is cute will be on my team. So I got Litten, and I just evolved it only into Torracat, and kept it that way for most of the game. And this time around we had things like Eviolite, we had better moves, so keeping things non-fully evolved is okay, I think, in more modern games. I think we have more freedom to do that with special items. We can boost the stats and the strength, not to mention the Z moves you could use that could just easily add a boost in power if you need one. So my second team member, I'm sure you've already guessed it, I love anything that is cute, so I had Cutify and Ribombee on my team. As soon as I saw Cutify, I definitely knew that I needed it on my team because it is adorable. I also love the bug and fairy type, and Ribombee itself is also very, very cute. I love the little ribbon bow scarf it has around its neck, and I really enjoy using this. I thought it was going to be kind of weak actually, but it was really great. I used this thing especially to wall Hala because he cannot touch bug and fairy types, so that was really fun. My next team member actually ended up being Lycanroc. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Rockruff and Lycanroc, but I ended up using them for the sole reason that I wanted to use something version exclusive. You're going to see from my past teams, I don't really use too many version exclusives outside of that Arcanine that I mentioned in Fire Red that I didn't even end up telling you about because that was a different team. But overall, I didn't use too many version exclusives, and I decided I wanted to use one, and I actually could have used one that I really liked, Passimian, but for whatever reason, I just ended up not getting that, and I ended up using Lycanroc instead, and I think this one was pretty good. I liked the midday form more than the midnight form anyway, so I decided it would be pretty fine to have it on my team. My next capture was the adorable Bounsweet, which eventually evolved into Serena. I love adorable, cute little babies, so you guys already know I needed this on my team. Steenie is also pretty cute. I wasn't the biggest fan of Serena at first when I saw her, but I ended up loving her, and now today she's one of my favorite Pokemon ever, and so I definitely, of course, wanted her on my team. She was just such a badass. I just love this thing so much. It's so strong and powerful, and it was very useful for my team. My next team member, can you guess what it was? It was Togedemaru. I need me my Pika clones, and Togedemaru is such an adorable fat little puffball. I needed to have it on my team. I mean, it's probably not puffy because it's a steel type, but you know what I mean. I was gonna have Togedemaru regardless, and so I had it on my team, and I think he's just so adorable. He's just so cute. He's the cutest thing ever. My last team member ended up being an Oricorio. So you guys are probably gonna notice by now that all of my team members were captured from different islands. I wanted to make at least one capture from each of the different islands in Alola. So my first three, of course, came from Melemele. My fourth, my Bounsweet, came from Akala. My Togedemaru came from Ula Ula. And for Pony Island, I decided to use Oricorio. When they first showed off the different Oricorio forms, my favorite was the Sensu form. And so I decided that I wanted that one on my team. Unfortunately, I didn't know that they blocked us from getting this thing until beating the game. And I'm still not sure why. They just locked off Melee. They just blocked off Pony Meadow until you beat the game, which was crazy to me. So I remember I had to go find a person who I could trade with and who could send me the nectar that I needed. So I think I just caught one on Ula Ula technically and just changed it to the Pony form. So technically it wasn't caught from Pony, but it is the form that you can get with Pony. So I think it's fine. But overall, this was my team. I think it ended up being quite a nice team. Again, I like to do cute things like catching a different Pokemon from a different island. Since there were 4 this time around, I thought I would do something cool with that. I'm going to put their nicknames up on screen, and this time around, I did something cool with the nicknames, which was that I essentially gave them words associated with the sun, since I chose sun version. So like different Greek gods or goddesses associated with the sun were all their names. And I actually like the fact that 2 of the names ended up starting with H, and 2 ended up starting with A, and 2 ended up starting with S. That wasn't even planned from the start, but once it came down to it and I was choosing names, I ended up really liking how that turned out. Once Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were announced, I ended up going with Ultra Sun because, like I said, I just love me some Solgaleo, and since Duskmane Necrozma is pretty much Solgaleo with some Necrozma sticking out of him, I decided to go with that version. But I did end up buying both Moon and Ultra Moon and playing them at some point, but these Sun versions were my main versions. And finally, this time around, I got my favorite starter, Popplio. And like I said, I did not end up fully evolve it because I just was not the biggest fan of Brionne and Primarina, so I kept mine as a cute, adorable little Popplio for the entire journey. Which again, thanks to ultra powerful Z moves, it wasn't the worst thing ever because I always had some powerful moves I could rely on for some OHKOs if things got too difficult. My second team member I ended up getting was Alolan Meowth, which I evolved into Alolan Persian. I think a lot of people didn't really like Alolan person when they first saw it, but I loved it. I think it is so cute. It reminds me of British short hair cats, which I think it is based off of, and I just love those things so much. They're so big and fat and fluffy, so why of course would I not have this on my team? I always liked Meowth in person originally, but I didn't really ever use one on my team, so I was very happy to see a Alolan Meowth and a Alolan person that I could use on this team. My next capture was Comfey because, well, look at it, it's cute and it's adorable, and I always like to use cute and adorable things for my team, so I did that same thing here. And you're going to see that I really did like fairy types with this team because I ended up actually using 3 of them this time around. But before we get to that, we get to my next capture, which was Lurantis. I really liked Lurantis when I first saw it. I was really debating between picking Bounsweet and Fomantis for my first team, and I, of course, went with Bounsweet. And when they announced Ultra Sun, I was like, oh, well, that's great, because now I can use Lurantis. I really love Lurantis so much. I love how pretty and pink it is, and I really enjoy using it on this team. My 5th team member was another one of my fairy types, Alolan Ninetales. Again, I said I tried to use some more version exclusives as the time has gone on, and so I decided to go with Alolan Vulpix this time, and I think Alolan Ninetales is one of the best Alolan forms out there. It is so beautiful, so gorgeous, so elegant, so of course I had to have it on my team. And the last team member was my 3rd fairy type. Yeah, I really need to stop pretending like I care about type overlap because my last was Mimikyu. Mimikyu, I think everyone loves Mimikyu. Mimikyu is one of the most adorable Pokemon out there, and it has such a tragic backstory that I think everyone just wants to give it the love that it never had. So of course, I added this adorable thing to my team, thankfully at the time before they nerfed its busted ability, so I was able to take advantage of that during the game. I'm going to put their nicknames on screen now, and their names are actually based off of a former popular singing group. Let's see if there's anyone who's a fan who can recognize them. Well, looky here, we went back to Kanto, haha, don't know why I thought we wouldn't, but I decided to play Let's Go Eevee when Let's Go games were announced. So I, of course, went with Eevee because, well, it's cute and it's adorable, and just like the image you see on screen, I did give my Eevee this haircut because once I found out that we could do haircuts, well, why wouldn't I get my Eevee one? And it is just the most adorable thing ever. I just love the partner Pikachu and Eevee in these games so much. The interactions you can have with them are just so cute. So I did go with Eevee version. I did get Pikachu version, but Eevee was my main one. My next team member ended up actually being Bulbasaur. Once they said that we could easily get the Kanto starters in this game, just as you could in Yellow version, I decided that I wanted to get them, but I chose to get only Venusaur in this game, and I saved Charizard and Blastoise for when I played Let's Go Pikachu. And the reason for that is because I already decided on a different fire and water type that I wanted to use for this team. But before we get to that, my next team member ended up being Venonat and Venomoth. I have always loved Venonat since I saw it in the anime many years ago, and it had that amazingly cool voice. I'm not sure if it still has that cool voice, but if it does, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll put an example in this video. But essentially, it just had this really interesting sounding voice, and because of that, I just loved Venonat and Venomoth, so I decided to use it on my team once we could go back to Kanto. Another Kanto mon that I've always really liked was Doduo and Dodrio. I especially started to like them more after I read the Pokemon Adventures manga Yellow chapter, because Yellow has a Doduo and a Dodrio, and it's just so cute. Adventures really has a great way of making mons that are normally kind of basic looking look really cute, so I decided that I would have this guy on my team. The fire type that I wanted to use was Rapidash, actually. For a while, I've been wanting to use a Rapidash on a team since I really like Ponyta and Rapidash, you know, ponies are just kind of cute. And it's ironic for me to say this because in real life, I'm not the biggest fan of horses, but I always really liked Ponyta and Rapidash, so I decided to use it on my team once we went back to Kanto in Let's Go Eevee. And as for that water type, I ended up going with Dewgong. I always really liked Seal and Dewgong, so I decided that why not use it on this team since I can. And I distinctly remember it taking me a while to find one. I'm not sure why. I think this thing was supposed to be pretty easy to find, but I did end up finding one, and I was able to finally use this thing that I've wanted to use for a while. So this team was essentially just me using a lot of mons that I never got the chance to use, that I've always wanted to use, and that I could use here on this team. I'm going to put their nicknames on screen right now. Most of their nicknames are pretty random. They're kind of pulled from different anime and TV shows, so maybe you guys can try to look and see if you can find where these names came from. These explanations are really getting shorter and shorter. I guess a lot of my later teams aren't all that interesting and don't have as many unique and funny backstories as when I was a noob. But moving swiftly along, when we went to Galar, I decided to play Shield version because I really just liked the fact that the icon was pink. That's pretty much it. Like I mentioned before, I like to go with the more warmer colors, the reds and the pinks, the oranges. Not always, of course I played X, but this time around I decided to go with Shield, which I'm glad because there were a lot of great version exclusives here and I actually ended up using some on this team. But first things first, my starter that I picked this time around was Scorbunny because it's adorable and why else would I pick it? But seriously though, I think Scorbunny is like my favorite starter fire type line ever. First of all, unlike everyone else, I had wanted us to get another pure fire type starter line for ages. The only one we had was Cyndaquil, and I was like, we are long overdue for another one, and we got that with Scorbunny, Raboot, and Cinderace. And can I just say, I love the designs for this entire line. Scorbunny is adorable, Raboot is adorable and edgy, and Cinderace just looks so cool, and I love these guys so much. Like I said, probably my favorite ever fire type starter line. Now, this team, I actually had some Pokemon that I had for a long while, but I didn't keep them on my team forever, so I will have some honorable mentions. One of them being a Rookidee that I captured that I actually kept until it evolved into Corvisquire, and I also had a Thievul and a Nickit that I kept for a while. Nickit is something I probably imagined I would have kept on my full team, but I didn't end up doing that because there were just other things that I wanted to use, but I did want to give them honorable mentions since I ended up catching them and having them on my team for quite a long while. Way longer than I had, well, probably not way longer than I had other team members, but they had a notable presence on my team, so I thought I should include them. But my next main real capture was a Milcery, and that evolved into Alchemy. When I first saw Alchemy, it was one of those things where I knew I had to have it. Alchemy is probably the most adorable thing I've ever laid my eyes on, and I knew from the start that that thing was going to be on my team, and especially when they showed off that you can have different flavors, different varieties, where I love those Pokemon where you can have different forms, colors, types, all those different types of things. Things like Eevee being able to choose a different evolution, things that can differ from player to player. I just like those types of things. So I decided to have an Alchemy, and I believe mine was the Ruby Swirl color pattern with the Strawberry Sweet. The next team member I caught was an Applin. When I first saw these leaked mons on Twitter, and I saw Applin and then Flapple. I didn't see Appleton at first, but I saw Flapple, so I thought that was the only one. I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool. I think I'll have that on my team. But then I saw Appleton and saw that it was exclusive to Shield, and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is perfect. It is adorable. It is just the cutest thing I've ever seen, and I love it. And I was so happy that I was getting Shield because Appleton is probably just the most adorable things ever out there. It's just a literal walking apple pie. How could you not love this thing? It is slow as hell in Pokemon Camp, though. The thing just cannot win a race to save its life unless it's racing against something also slow like Alchemy. But it's just so cute how it just tries to win races, and it's just so slow and a loser, and it's never going to win anything, but it's just so cute, guys. It just tried its best. My next team member ended up being Dracozolt. Unlike probably everyone else out there, I actually do not hate the Galar fossils. I think they're really creative and unique, and I think Dracozolt and Arctozolt in particular are just super cute and adorable. And I ended up liking Dracozolt just a bit more, especially because, you know, it's pink, got the pink cheeks there. I like my pink colors. And yeah, you can already tell that I don't care about repeating 2 dragon types because I just decided to have Dracozolt regardless. Now, it took me forever to get this thing because you do get 2 free fossils depending on your version. And I did get the one that I needed for the, you know, the dragon typing, but I didn't get the bird that I needed to get the electric typing. They ended up giving you the one for Dracovish in Shield, so they gave me the fish fossil and the dragon fossil, but I didn't, and those aren't the right names. I don't remember the names. I'm not going to look them up. So yeah, it took me forever. It took me ages to get the fossil that I needed to get the bird fossil. It just took me ages to get that. But finally, after hours of grinding and going to those stupid mining, digging brothers, I finally was able to get it and add this thing to my team, and I think it was well worth the wait. I think it is so adorable, and I love it. Just like Aurorus, one of my favorite fossils. My 5th team member was Galarian Ponyta. Y'all, when I saw this Galarian pony, I was like, I need it, I want it, I gotta have it. And then when they said it was exclusive to Shield, I was like, bruh, Shield just has the best version. Exclusive. Shield is the superior version. Confirmed. So I saw this thing, I had to get this pony, and then I saw Galarian Rapidash, and it was just so beautiful and so elegant. I decided that this is just definitely a contender for my team. Yes, 2 fairies, but you can see by now that I really do not care about repeating types. Especially when you look at my last choice, which was of course Morpeko, meaning I did have 2 electric types, but I get my Pika clones all the time, except for, Manectric, but I love my Pika clones, so I decided that I had to have Morpeko, and I really like the little ability that it has where it can change form, and it can change the type of Aura Wheel to either electric or dark, so that was pretty cool. So I really ended up enjoying this team. It's really funny because with this game taking the gym and the league so seriously, I wanted this super diverse team of all these varied types, and then I just ended up being with a team of type repeats all over the place, but I still ended up liking them, and I will put their nicknames on screen right now. Their nicknames are based off of a popular singing group. Maybe, again, you can see if you're a real fan and you know who they are. Traveling back to Sinnoh for Shining Pearl. Of course I had to get Shining Pearl. Y'all already know that Sinnoh was my first game. These were my babies. I am a Sinnoh baby, so I had to go back to Sinnoh with Shining Pearl. And I'm sure you guys will not be surprised to know that yes, I started out with Chimchar yet again. I'm sure you guys were saying, oh my gosh, she's finally gonna use a different starter. No, I used Chimchar again. I had to use my Chimchar in 3D, guys. But no, seriously, I just love Chimchar so much, and I had to use it again, so I did. Plus, I also had plans for a different water and grass type, and my water type was everyone's favorite Bibarel. Y'all know I had to have Bibarel on my team because Bidoof is just so adorable, and everyone just laughs at Bidoof. No one takes it seriously. Everyone just used Bibarel as an HM slave, but not me. I put this thing on my team, and bro, this thing had the simple ability, so it could get like extra boosts when it used different stat raising moves. So this thing was pretty much a beast. Like y'all sleep on Bibarel, but Bibarel is a force to be reckoned with, actually. My next team member, of course, it had to be Pachirisu. I used it again because I always have my Pika clones, and this time around, I didn't just let it sit there and do nothing. I actually leveled her up with the rest of my team, so it was not like the first game where I had a level 35 or whatever Pachirisu going into the league. My next team member was that grass type I wanted. Now, I actually wanted to try to use Leafeon this time around, since I had already used Glaceon, and, we're in Sinnoh, I thought I should use the Sinnoh Evolution, but since Leafeon wasn't easily obtainable, since Eevee wasn't available before the post-game once again, I decided to get a new grass type, and I decided to go with Cherrim. I've always liked Cherrim. I thought it was super cute, and of course I had to, get one with Solar Beam so I could always have it in its cute sunny form, so I ended up using this one, and I liked it, and I'm so glad it was much easier to catch this time around. No honey trees, I could just go to the Grand Underground and catch one easily. The same could not be said for my 5th team member, Mothim. Burmy was still limited to honey trees, and it took me quite a bit of running around going through honey trees to find one, but thankfully I was able to do so. It didn't take too long, and I was able to get one and use a Mothim, and thankfully the first one I found was a male, so I was able to easily evolve it into Mothim. I always liked Mothim a lot more than Wormadam, so I decided I had to use one on my team, and it actually ended up being a pretty nice team member. My last team member was something else I've wanted to use for a while, and that was Croagunk. I've always liked Croagunk and Toxicroak, especially thanks to the Diamond and Pearl anime where Brock had one, and I always thought it was really funny. So I decided to get one on my team, and I think I also got this in the Grand Underground. I don't think it was limited to the Great Marsh like it was before. So this was my team, and yeah, it's a bunch of goofballs, but hey, look at the bright side. I didn't end up repeating a type this time. The nicknames are going on screen now, and I actually liked what I did with the nicknames this time around, and I gave them all nicknames that are synonyms of Shining. Since I did get Shining Pearl, I thought it would be cool to be able to get some nicknames that were based on the word Shining, and I decided to just go with some synonyms that I thought fit them all pretty nicely. As of right now, my last official team came from Legends Arceus, a game that I actually didn't even intend to buy, but I decided to do so because my sister brought it up, and this time around, since I wasn't planning on this game, I didn't have a planned team, so this is the first team in a long time that I've made that I didn't plan from the start. Now, there are some things I decided that I wanted to get early on, one of them being my starter, Oshawott, as we already established. I love Oshawott so much, and I, of course, was going to use it this time around. I'm not really the biggest fan of Rowlet in general. I do like Cyndaquil, but again, I just decided to go with Oshawott, and I really like the Hisui and Samurott. I think it looks really cool, so I was happy to use it this time around. My second official team member was not planned on being an official team member. It is actually a Gastrodon that I ended up randomly catching somewhere on the beach, whatever the name of that location is. Again, I'm not looking it up because I'm lazy. But I ended up catching a Gastrodon that I kept on my team for a while, just as a pure defensive tank. It was a much higher level than my team. I was pretty under-leveled for most of this game, but I kept this Gastrodon around. I miraculously caught it, and it was so defensively bulky that I could just use it to sponge up hits while my other, main team member at the time, Duat, could relax and, not die. And I ended up keeping this on my team so long that I just decided to add her to my team. I was like, I've kept this Gastrodon for ages and I don't really have anything else I've planned on using, so why not? And I think it was really nice. I actually liked this element of this team building that I just kept something on my team that I didn't even plan up using, but she just became so special to me that I kept her on my team. My next team member was Chatot. Like I mentioned before, I love Chatot so much, and since I saw that we're going back to Sinnoh and I can actually add Chatot on my team again, and seeing it actually flying around, I thought I would add it to this team, and I did. And this thing was pretty terrible. Its defenses are just garbage, trash, just was worthless, utterly terrible, didn't learn really any good moves, but it is cute, and what other reason is there to have it other than for it to be cute? My next team member was also something that I didn't really expect to keep. It was a Glameow. Now, I kept this thing because I just in general like Glameow and I just wanted to have one. I didn't plan on keeping it, but I actually kept it on my team for so long that it evolved into Purugly. This thing was pretty fast, so I really just used it to quickly get some hits in, and if it fainted, I would just send it something stronger to finish the battle, but she just stayed on my team so long, and, once she evolved, I was like, well, may as well keep her on the team, and I kind of like Purugly. I didn't really like it too much compared to Glameow. I always really liked Glameow, but not Purugly too much, but I've grown to like it a bit more, especially after using it here, and again, I liked this element of being able to have something on my team that I didn't originally plan for. My last two team members are the ones that I kind of planned. Like I said, I didn't follow too much about this game since I didn't plan on buying it at first, but when I did discover the Hisuian form of Goodra and especially Sliggoo, which I thought were just adorable. Sliggoo especially, the way it's in its little shell, and it just has its top of its head and its little arm sticking out. It's just the cutest thing ever to me, and I think Goodra looks pretty cute as well, so I decided that I would have this on my team as well, and I did. I also did end up using Goodra when I played Y, so being able to use this Hisuian form was really nice as well, especially since it has a different type. My last team member ended up being the Hisuian Sneasel's evolution, which is, what's it called again? Sneasler, that's what the name is. Yeah, I saw Sneasler and I really liked it. I think a lot of people actually dislike it. I'm not sure why. I thought Sneasler looked pretty cool. The design to me is just pretty badass and I really liked it. And I was surprised that it was actually able to be a Rhydamon. Again, of course, not your own, but some random Sneasler. You get to have her carry you around in a backpack. So I just like Sneasler design. I think it looks really cool, so I did add it on my team. I remember it taking me a while to find one of these. I'm not sure why, or not find, but like catch one that wasn't like too over leveled. I'm not sure what was going on, but it took me a while to get one of these that I actually wanted to keep. Maybe, I'm not sure if I was looking for a particular gender or something, but I know it took me a while to just catch one of these and use one. It also took me a while to get the Alpha Goodra. I know you get one normally automatically, but I think I accidentally killed it, so I had to reset quite a bit. But in the end, I ended up using this as my team, and I thought it was really nice to be able to put together a team that I didn't plan for once. And again, I'm putting their nicknames on screen. Their nicknames are just random Naruto characters across the show and the manga, because we were in, ancient feudal Japan, so, I thought ancient ninjas and all that jazz. So all their names are just random characters. Most of them are just, again, not even main characters. I literally just googled names associated with things like water and flying and dragons, and those are the names I ended up coming up with. So we've now reached the end of this video. You can see as the video went on, most of these segments got shorter and shorter because things just weren't as interesting with team building when you have everything already planned out and you aren't a noob. But we are now here at the end, and we are approaching the beginning of a brand new generation soon. Scarlet and Violet will be out in just a few months, and I'm sure we're all excited to see just what kind of new teams that we will all be building. Maybe you guys can take a guess of what my team will be, especially my starter. Looking at the starters I've shown off so far, I've gotten quite a bit of a variety, going from water to fire to grass. So why don't you guys take a guess on what you guys think my starter of choice will be in Gen 9, and what version do you think I'll get? Probably pretty obvious, but we shall see, and I will definitely be coming back to you guys with a video with my Scarlet and Violet team once those games come out. So thank you all for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the like button. If you didn't like it, please hit the dislike button, even though we can't see them anymore. And yes, if you guys enjoyed this type of video, maybe you want to hit the subscribe button, but if you don't want to, then don't click it. And I will see you guys next time.